You know, he chose to do that horizontal, you know, to get the breadth of experience instead of the, you know, doing just one thing. So it's a choice he made, and so he does definitely do all that stuff, and so he's definitely a Renaissance man.
I've often said he's really mastered consciousness. You know what I mean by that is he can spend hours just being involved in that, and then he'll switch to maybe the violin or writing poetry, or let's go out with some friends. And he never seems like a guy who's bored. You know, it doesn't strike me as he wouldn't have time for boredom. He doesn't have even time to die, never mind anything else.
Shortly before he put a gun to his chest and took his life, Vincent van Gogh wrote to a close friend that he believed his life to be a terrible failure. In 20 years' time, Van Gogh sold only one painting and was never able to make a successful living from his art. Of course, he is now considered a master for his use of color and inventive style. Yet we must also awe at his relentless commitment to his craft. Success cannot be calculated simply by financial gain or acclamation, but perhaps it is best measured by a dedication to one's own beliefs and self-expression, and a determination to persevere in spite of all odds.
Jovan Mahailovic. I write novels, stories, poetry, plays. Then I paint. Then I also compose some musical compositions. I play violin. I teach acting and directing. Originally, I'm from former Yugoslavia, and I saw I didn't see beginning, but I saw the wartime, and I saw later on, I was already in America when the whole thing collapsed. Being in that system, you have to think. Either you have to think or you become like a piece of stone. And more you think, somehow your inner life creates some kind of a vision of freedom and vision of country where you can grow mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. And at that time, I remember I wrote a story at that time. It was like a magic window that through window you go to different world, different dimensions, different time. And that was probably my beginning, subconscious beginning of thinking to leave the country. I wanted to go away, and I went away. And I went through many different moments of my life. In Stockholm, I was carrying a sacks of something, and I was just doing anything, dishwashing. But I was a happy man. Nothing can break my spirit. I was writing, meanwhile I was doing. Then I started playing. Then I had my 2 art shows or 3 in Stockholm. Then I was playing Rikstheater. So when I left Sweden, I liked that country. It was some kind of a sad, melancholy pleasantness. And I had a great moments in Sweden. That's when I learned all about violins, by the way, in Sweden. And it helped me grow. Wherever you go, it happens that you can. If you want to grow, you are going to have motivation to grow. If you don't want to grow, nothing will help you grow.
My name is Steve Gibbons. I live in Chicago. I play the violin, and I lead a band called Gypsy Rhythm Project. And I've known Jovan for 15 years or so, and in the past 3 or 4 years, we've become very close friends. The very first time I met Jovan was through a common friend of ours named Al Rose. I think at that time he had a whole room basically devoted to the violins. And he's always been working on violins. He's got a whole theory about how to cut the table of a violin, the inside of the top of the violin, to improve the sound, and it works. He does all the violins that he gets, that he sells to people. he does this too, and they always end up having some great kind of character. All I asked Jovan to do was to fix the headstock here. It's cracked. You probably can't see it now because he fixed it, but it was cracked, and all I needed was it to be put together. And I think it was actually for a friend. I wasn't going to actually keep the violin except for temporarily. But instead of doing that, he took the top off the violin and regraduated it, and using his theories of regraduation, which work, and put it all back together, and then gave it back to me. And there was no charge. He's never charged me for any work that he's done. But you know, Jovan has absolutely no interest in commercializing it, or doing them on a made-to-order basis or anything like that. He just always goes back to working at the art itself, and that's what he does.
Yeah, my name is Jerry Coyne, and I've known Jovan for about 3.5 years. He's worked on violins for me as well. I'll come over and to get them either repaired and things like that. And he has a fantastic ear because he's really a violinist, and he kind of knows how the instrument should sound and if it needs any touch-up or things like that. And he's very good at that. It usually comes back a different instrument.
It started when my father saw this beautiful copy of Gasparo da Salo in some antique store, and he bought it for me. Naturally, once you have violin, somebody has to learn violin. In fact, my brother was also studying. He was older, 6 years. But we started learning at the same time, and he wasn't doing so. He was all right. He was all right, but he wasn't even interested much. But I found violin magical, and it was really beautiful instrument. It was unique looking, yellow with beautiful purfling on the back that created my desire to decorate later on my own instruments. I was always attracted to violin. I was searching violins since I was 14. Played so many different violins, good ones, bad ones. And then I started working on violins. My specialty is to pick up old, ugly, and bad sounding violin, turn into beautiful, beautiful sounding violin. And I had a bunch of people that I restored, repaired, I improved violin more than 100%.
25 years. He's always been in the shop. But he knows a lot about it. He's a good player. Have you heard him play? He's a very good player. And he's just a very unusual person that he says, he was in intensive care twice. He was near death twice. So really? That you see him now that way is a miracle.
Where are the stories there with him being ill?
Well, as I told you, he fell off the ladder and broke his arm, and it almost came off. It was so bad.
He finds himself in situations that are very bad, and then he gets himself out of them using a lot of times just with brute strength, For example, a couple winters ago, he's walking down the street, and he falls. He slips on some ice, and he breaks his pinky on his left hand, playing violin. It's like, you can't play without that. So now most people would have, been all panicked, and they would have, asked somebody to call 911, gone to the hospital, and had it set. None of that for him. He set it himself with his other hand. And I am not kidding you. And then he waited for it to heal. And then he just started exercising it. And then he started playing again. And then he got back to his normal playing. I mean, it's like, wow. I've talked about this with a couple friends other friends of like Jerry Coyne. We just shake our heads. It's like, oh, wow. He set his own pinky, broken pinky. Go figure that,